Allah, I wanna thank you. I wanna thank you for all the things that you've done. You've done for me through all my years I've been lost. You guided me from all the ways that were wrong. Indeed, you gave me hope. Oh, Allah, I wanna thank you. I wanna thank you for all the things that you've done. You've done for me. Through all been lost.
Okay, Assalamualaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh, everyone. Before we start the event, I would like to remind a few things. Okay, first of all, this event will be conducted in Malay and English. And the second one, if you ever have any kind of question, please use the chat box, or if you're on YouTube, just comment. Don't ever use the microphone. Okay, we'll start shortly. Okay, Assalamualaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh, and a very good evening to everyone. Well, welcome to the forum with title of And What If I Am a Bookworm? So, let me first introduce myself. My name is Nuha binti Mohamad Najib. I am the moderator of this forum as for today. Before we proceed with the main agenda, it is the best for us to commence the event with the recitation of dua. Therefore, I'd like to call upon Brother Hamza for the recitation of dua.
Thank you, Ms. Chairperson. إلى حضرة النبي مصطفى رسول الله صلى الله عليه وسلم وآله وأصحابه الكرام. الفاتحة. أعوذ بالله من الشيطان الرجيم. بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم. الحمد لله رب العالمين والصلاة والسلام على سيدنا محمد أشرف المرسلين وعلى آله وصحبه أجمعين. O Allah, I beg you of all good things which pertains to this day and days hereafter, and seek for your protection from all evil pertains to this day and days hereafter. Allahumma ya Allah, on this glorious day, in conjunction with the forum entitled, And What If I Am a Bookworm, we uphold our hands to pray gratefully to thank you on your infinite favor to us until we can live in peace and harmony to perform our task as your servant. O Allah, we ask your blessing to make this occasion in success. Allahumma ya hayyu ya qayyum ya zal jalali wal ikram. You are the mercy of the mercies and you are the Lord of the universe. Give us mercy from your presence and shape for us right conduct to our life. We ask for our knowledge which is beneficial and sustenance which is good and deeds which are acceptable. O Allah, help us to remember you, to thank you and to worship you in the best of manners. Forgive us, have mercy upon us, guide us, give us health and grant us sustenance. O Allah, we seek refuge in you from undesirable manner, deeds and aspirations. Allahumma inna na'udzubika min al-barasi wal junun wal juzam wa min sa'il asqam. ربنا آتنا في الدنيا حسنة وفي الآخرة حسنة وقنا عذاب النار سبحان ربك العزة عما يصفون والسلام على المرسلين والحمد لله رب العالمين. Thank you.
Thank you, Brother Hamza, for that. May by that Allah grant us His blessing. So, as for now, I would like to, it is the best for me to briefly introduce about our speakers for tonight. These two exceptional great speaker has been awarded as the National NILAM Figures 2019, which Brother Ahmad Luqman for the English category, while Sister Syahirah Balqis for the Malay category. So when we talk about NILAM, tokoh NILAM, the only thing that comes to our mind is all about reading, but actually it's beyond that. It's about public speaking. It's about your confidence, personality. It's beyond reading lab. That's it. So now I think I'm sorry, I'm quite nervous, but anyways, we'll just go through it. So let me ask the first question to Brother Luqman. The first question would be, how did you get to be awarded as tokoh NILAM, and who support you, and is there any significant event that turned you to become a very well enthusiast with reading, or is it instilled in you from the very moment you was born, if you may?
Bismillahirrahmanirrahim. Assalamualaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh. So before I start, a little introduction. Like she introduced me before, my name is Ahmad, and I'm also a CFX student from UIA. As you guys, I'm in taking foundation in medicine, as you can also see in the poster. So as she cut to the chase and started to ask me questions, there were two questions that were asked. The first was, how was I awarded tokoh NILAM and who supported me? And the second question was basically asking me about how was I interested in reading. I think that's like the general term of all those words that she used to ask me. So I'll answer the second question first, because I think it's better to answer why I was interested in reading, and then I'll answer how I actually won tokoh NILAM. So a brief background for all of you people. Like she said, Tokoh Nilam is not just a reading competition. It's also a competition where they test your public speaking, where they test your research skills. So Tokoh Nilam is basically a program. It's done every single year around for schools under KPM. All schools under KPM, including MRSM and SBP, will have this tournament. And they test you by asking about what you read and asking how many books you read, and also about current issues. There's so many current issues that they will ask you. So in order to get into the tournament itself, you have to be super well read. If you don't read and they ask you some like about a current issue, you can't answer, which made some participants cry, or other things because they weren't well read. So yeah, let's ask the first question. How was I like interested in reading? I think it wasn't really instilled specifically reading during my childhood, but I think my parents provided me enough material in order to start reading. Like when I was a child, because my parents were studying, they were doing their PhD at that time, they didn't really have time for us sometimes. They had most of their time were used to study because they had to finish their studies. So what they did was they bought a lot of books for us. They never really asked us to like read the books, but they bought it. So it's there. So what I did was, you can explore stuff. So I went and took some books and I started reading them. And there was this like my favorite collection was called Best Love Collection. It's just a child collection. It tells you about animals, it tells you about fairy tales. So I started my reading journey in my life by reading simple fairy tales as a child. As a child, I used to love the idea, like fantastical stuff, anything about fantasy, anything about fairy tales. And that's the point in time I started to begin to like reading because my parents provided the books and it was there to read. So starting from that, I started to read other books. I started to read, heavier and heavier books, and I had passion in it because the idea of reading, if you want to start reading, you have to act upon it. Like even though I have siblings, they aren't as enthusiastic as reading, not because they're not knowledgeable, but I believe the act of reading starts with an act. If you really want to read something, you have to go and have the effort to open that book, read about it, and also pretend that you're interested in it. And by time you actually will be interested in something. So that's how I started reading. My parents just provided a lot of books. It was my own incentive to actually take a book and open it, I guess. So yeah. So the second question, how was I awarded Tokoh Nilam? In the national level, Alhamdulillah, I was the champion of Tokoh Nilam in the national level. So who supported me? My parents supported me a lot, and my teacher, his name is Sir Zamri. Like I was so close to him. Syahirah Balqis is also close to him. Everyone's close to him. He was my teacher, and he supported me every single step of the way. But to be honest, this tournament, it's a complicated tournament with many great participants that are even greater than me. Like I also competed with a person that entered this tournament in high school, and that person has already won nationals when she was in primary school before. Yeah, but like the idea is, I don't know how I want to be specific, but I believe it was mostly God's work. All I did was I did tons of research. Every single day before the tournament, I made notes. I read about all the issues and important notes. I made creative notes with colored pens. Some people might find it weird for a guy to use colored pens, but I use colored pens. So yeah, I made notes from what I read, everything I read, and I read most of the important books that I read it back. Because in Tokoh Nilam, they ask you a lot about the books that you read. Like meaning like 5 books that you read, those important that there are 5 books that you have to choose, and they'll ask you so many stuff about that certain book. So yeah, I read them again, I made notes, and during the tournament, I guess what I showed them was just my genuine fascination in what I read. Being able to read is not just, it's not just about reading lines of text. It's also about being fascinated and understand by everything that you read. So I think mostly what I did in the tournament was just, show them my genuine fascination and how I practiced everything that I read into my daily life. So at the end of the day, when I asked the judges why I won, I think the simple answer that they gave me was because they said that I practiced most of what I read in my daily life, I guess. So I think the idea of Tokoh Nilam and being a scholar of reading, it's not just about reading lines of text. It's not just about reading something to make you feel smart. It's also about reading something and having passion in it, and also at the same time practicing what you read, taking a lesson. In Islam, you would say, you would use the word like tafakkur or tadabbur in anything that you do. So I think those are my answers. I give the ceremony back to the MC.
Thank you, Brother Luqman, for such astonishing answers. Soalan yang sama diajukan untuk Sister Balqis. Bagaimana anda dapat dianugerahkan sebagai tokoh nilam, dan apa cerita di sebalik ini?
Okay, Assalamualaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh. Selamat malam semua dan terima kasih kepada semua yang sudi untuk menyertai Google Meet kita malam ni. Thank you Sister Nuha, thank you juga Brother Luqman and Brother Hamzah. Okay, so sebelum kita kita pergi dekat macam mana saya dapat tokoh nilam tu, saya nak cerita sikit tokoh nilam tu sebenarnya apa. So kalau yang basically kita semua tahu yang tokoh nilam tu macam siapa baca buku paling banyak. Tapi benda tu sebenarnya dia betul tapi dia salah juga at the same time. Sebab waktu penganugerahan tokoh nilam tu dah tak tengok langsung dah pasal buku tu. Sebab itu macam dia memang ada requirement before kita pergi penganugerahan tu. Kena baca macam certain, contoh 500, itu semua kena dah lepas awal-awal. So dekat penganugerahan tu dia ada macam-macam assessment yang dijalankan dekat kita. So assessment dia tak bagi tahu, contoh dia tak macam satu tempoh yang spesifik. The whole time kita orang dekat camp nilam tu is the assessment. Dia tengok cara kami communicate dengan each other. Lepas tu untuk pengurus yang jaga, saya dengan Luqman tim Selangor, pengurus yang jaga tim Selangor tu macam-macam dia ajar. Dia ajar cara untuk duduk properly in a seat tu macam mana, cara untuk mingle around dengan orang lain, how to posing sebab kita orang kena macam ambil gambar untuk folio untuk simpan dekat BTPN Selangor. So macam-macam lah. And during that anugerah nilam tu pun saya, cikgu saya tak sarankan saya untuk asyik dengan Luqman je sebab kami macam dah kenal kan. So cikgu macam sarankan kena mingle around sebab dia nak tengok tokoh ni orang yang boleh bersama dengan orang lain. Macam sebab tokoh nilam, dekat penganugerahan nilam tu dia ada sekolah rendah juga. So adik-adik darjah 6 tu kita kena jaga and tengok. Macam so kita kena mingle around dengan diorang juga semua. So banyak lah. And waktu assessment tu dia ada public speaking, ada writing punya assessment. Lepas tu dia bagi kami macam tugas berkumpulan, kena buat macam pementasan teater lah, nyanyian lah. Dia nak tunjuk macam tu lah. Okay, so basically itu tokoh nilam. Buku tu yes, kena baca banyak. But once dekat penganugerahan dan pengtauliahan tu, semua tu dah tak dikira dah. It's how what you read develop your character. Itu sebenarnya tokoh nilam bagi saya lah. Okay, kemudian nak menjawab kepada macam mana sebenarnya cerita di sebalik benda ni. Okay, kalau cerita yang dulu-dulu punya, kalau time saya kecil saya memang suka membaca. Tapi saya suka baca benda yang macam untuk sesuai dengan umur waktu tu. Contohnya macam majalah Bintang Kecil lah, buku anak Muslim lah, majalah Asuh, novel-novel Ain Maisarah. Saya ada banyak gila. So macam that's the starting point. Dan parents saya pun menggalakkan. And zaman tu kita tak ada gadget-gadget. Budak-budak tak main gadget sangat. So macam I do read and I enjoy reading. Okay, so macam kalau dah makin besar pula, waktu saya sekolah menengah, saya mula participate in debate, debat. Lepas tu macam pidato juga. And semua tu involving kita kena membaca in a way. So daripada saya, so kita punya bahan bacaan tu berubah secara berperingkat. Dia seiring dengan umur. Macam sekarang pun peringkat apa yang saya baca pun sedang mengalami perubahan. Macam saya nak cuba lepas ni kita baca pasal investment ke. So So benda tu akan bergerak seiring dengan kita punya fasa. So janganlah macam risau kalau sekarang kita baca novel, macam novel Melayu, novel cinta. It's okay, just read. That's how it start. Okay? And lepas tu, macam mana saya dianugerahkan tokoh NILAM. Macam kalau pertama sekali dekat sekolah saya, buat buku NILAM tu memang wajib sebab dia selain pertandingan NILAM, dia ada pertandingan library juga. Maksudnya ada pertandingan perpustakaan antara sekolah. Lepas tu memang NILAM tu memang antara ciri-ciri untuk perpustakaan tu menjadi pemenang. So dekat sekolah kami memang diwajibkan. Lepas tu daripada aktiviti-aktiviti saya yang lain, contoh MC, debat, pidato semua, barulah saya dipilih jadi tokoh NILAM. Tokoh NILAM ni macam last kali untuk assessment dekat sekolah saya untuk pilih wakil sekolah. Okay, lepas tu bila dah start dekat untuk dah lepas peringkat sekolah, pergi peringkat negeri semua tu pula saya bawa diri dengan benda-benda lain. Macam cikgu saya bawa saya pergi talk untuk bagi talk dekat tadika. Lepas tu saya pernah juga masuk surat khabar. So benda-benda tambahan tu yang macam plus point dekat time penganugerahan. So and saya percaya juga dianugerahkan tokoh NILAM tu tapi dekat peringkat kebangsaan saya tak menang. Saya Johan Selangor dan wakil Selangor ke kebangsaan je. And waktu Selangor tu macam everything was doing well, tapi waktu kebangsaan saya tak nafikan memang dia sangat-sangat tough lah sebab everyone is represent their own state kan, macam wakil dari negeri tu. So and yang paling support saya of course parents saya, cikgu-cikgu NILAM sekolah saya memang sangat supporting. Lepas tu kawan-kawan semua, and saya rasa diri saya sendiri juga, saya memang nak achieve benda tu. Sebab bagi saya nak unleash the fullest potential of individu tu. Maksudnya macam dulu saya main sports juga. So saya macam saya tak nak ada mentality sportman tu dia adalah orang yang dengan sport je. Tapi kita boleh buat macam-macam. Itu potensi diri kita yang kita kena teroka. So saya rasa itulah sedikit perjalanan jadi tokoh NILAM tu. Saya bagi semula kepada Sister Nuha.
Terima kasih Sister Syahirah. Sangat hebat. Rasa rendah diri ya saya. There's quite a few things that I get from Brother Luqman earlier. When he said that when we want to do it, act upon it. So in this context, you don't just, if you like reading, it's not just about buying books. It's not just going to the bookstore, oh, I like this book, isn't it? You need to act upon it. You need to read on it. And yeah, moving on to the next question, which would be the time management. So how did you manage to read book and study at the same time? Especially, it was during the SPM year. And also you guys are you guys both are very active students with debate, and also Sister Bal with sports. So how did you do it? If you may, to Brother Luqman.
Thank you for the question asked. So the question was, how did I manage my time? And I think like this is something that I share, and I hope others can also take incentive and initiatives too. So yeah, during my time, during Form 5, I did join a lot of things. I was a debater, and I joined a few tournaments. And just so you know, if anyone out there, has a brother or something, if they join this NILAM tournament, it's actually a lot. Like you have to spend maybe like 1 month out of school, because in training to NILAM, you also go to a lot of places. Like me and Syahirah Balqis, we went to Sina Harian to give a speech. We've also been invited to Majallah Remaja, which was extremely fun. There were no issues at all. And a lot of other places. And it took a lot of my time. But in order for time management, and I hope what I share can also help you guys, I think before you do anything, there's one fundamental there's one fundamental mentality and concept that you have to understand. If you want to join activities, if you want to be someone great, if you want to speak in front of people, you want to join tournaments or anything really, even if you want to join any certain activity, you must be aware of the consequences that will happen after. You have to understand, if you want to join a lot of stuff, then you'll be burdened with less time. And with understanding that and also accepting that fact, I think that's the point where you won't be too overstressed by overwhelming activities, because you've already accepted earlier on that this is your choice, hence I must be responsible for my choice. So what did I do during my busy form 5? So I think there are two types of people, and I'll tell you what I did first, and I'll also give you certain tips for other people out there that want to find ways to organize their time. Firstly, for people that can stick to time periods like me, there are two ways. What I do is normally I make a daily schedule, but I don't do it pre-written. Some people, they write their schedule for the next week. Okay, this is my schedule. I can't stick to it because my schedule always change. Because your moods always change, your emotions always change. Sometimes you're not available to study something at a certain point of time. So I'm not really a person for pre-written schedules. Some people are, which is great, and it's excellent. But what I do is I make a daily schedule. So as I wake up, I already have in my mind what I'm going to do today. So at this time, during this time, I'm going to do this time, and this time, on this period of time, I'm going to do this. And one main thing that anyone has to remember if they want to talk about time management is, so many people out there, they try to find alternatives and try to find ways on how to manage your time. But I believe the fundamental aspect of managing your time is discipline. Either you want it or not, you can't really run from the idea of discipline. If you want to manage your time, you must have a certain sense of discipline in your daily life. And for tips for other people, because I have many friends that they can't stick to schedules at all, what I would suggest you to do is just, like, for example, in a day, you have a few assignments or you have few things to do. Just write 3 things that you have to do today. For example, today I have to finish I'm a science student. I have to finish my biology assignment. I also have to join my physics discussion, and I also have to do my UI, for example. So just remember, those are the 3 things that you have to do today. Whenever you do it, it doesn't matter as long as you finish those 3 things. And I think this is, it's a good way for people that can't really stick with schedules at all to just list of the things what must be done. And then regardless of how you put your time, because some people can't follow that, those 3 things must be done in that day. So on how I manage my time is I make a daily schedule. Mostly it's mental, but if it's a very busy day, I normally write things. Like, for example, my club, we're currently doing a program called Dean's Cup. It's a tournament in SFS. You guys can join. But I'm gonna be very busy for the next few days. So what I do is basically I just take a piece of paper and I write what I'm going to do for the day to manage my time well. So yeah, I pass on the ceremony back to the MC.
Thank you, Brother Luqman. So few things that I get to jot down is you need to write 3 things, most important things to do, just very short one, and also the fundamental aspect that is needed when you want to manage your time is the discipline. Jadi seterusnya saya paskan soalan kepada Sister Syahirah dengan soalan yang sama seperti tadi, bagaimana Sister manage your time.
Okay. Thank you, Sister Nuha. So, macam mana cara pengurusan masa? Bagi saya, pengurusan masa setiap orang ni, dia berbeza-beza. Lagi-lagi sekarang tengah online learning sebab ada orang dia kena buat house chores, ada orang macam memang freely, ada orang kena jaga adik-adik, semua kan. So, macam Luqman dia dah cerita banyak pasal macam mana nak manage time as a student. So kalau bagi saya pula, saya sebenarnya amalkan tips yang sama yang Luqman cakap tadi, macam jot down list, daily plan apa yang kita nak buat, semua tu kan. Tapi sekarang saya nak macam cerita macam in my opinion, macam mana kita nak selitkan masa untuk kita baca buku tu. Okay, so kalau saya ni sejenis student yang macam bukanlah fokus, tapi kalau saya tengah, contoh saya tengah in period of macam tengah belajar kan, sekarang tengah week 8, something like that. So saya akan fokus to more to academic. Saya tak masukkan pun baca tu dalam saya punya daily routine. Kalau saya tengah debat pun saya tak masukkan belajar dalam saya punya debat. Saya macam orang yang macam center dekat satu benda. Tapi kalau kita ada dari aspek yang lain, macam mana nak orang yang nak start baca, orang yang nak continue membaca ni, kat mana sebenarnya nak selit? So saya rasa yang terbaik adalah, ini bagi saya, membaca ni adalah coping mechanism. Macam kita selalu stress dengan apa yang kita buat in daily life, kita punya assignments, kita punya kerja. Benda tu membuatkan kita macam penat, in a way penat mental and penat physical. So tapi apa yang kita buat bila kita dapat break time? Mostly yang kadang-kadang saya juga dan orang lain saya percaya, mostly bila dapat break time, orang akan capai phone and then scroll the media sosial, right? So bagi saya, benda tu memang kita takkan dapat dielakkan, memang orang akan buat. Tapi how about kalau kita nak change ourselves untuk ada habit yang baik, kita masukkan dalam kita punya rehat tu, kita baca bahan bacaan yang santai. So in a way, membaca tu akan membuatkan kita more human. Sebab kita feed our otak and kita feed our soul juga. Contoh kita baca buku-buku pasal keagamaan kan. So benda tu in a way akan macam reduce kita punya stress. Sebab benda tu akan, rohaniahnya akan membantu kita, vibes dalaman tu akan jadi lebih positif. So dengan macam yang saya cakap, kalau kita selalu macam social media, benda tu akan membuatkan kita in a way lagi penat. Kita baca benda-benda yang toksik, kita digest macam-macam lah, kerajaan lah, isu artis lah, isu-isu tersebut in a way macam buat kita mentally lagi penat. So how about kita ambil bahan bacaan yang santai, time kita macam tengah ada masa-masa rehat, baca novel. Kalau baca e-book pun boleh, baca poem yang pendek-pendek. Saya suka buat macam tu. Contohnya macam poem-poem Lang Leaf, Rupi Kaur, semua tu kan. Dia pendek je, dia sangat-sangat pendek. Dia punya text in a book, tapi kita akan rasa happy hormone bila kita buat benda tu instead of just scrolling the social media. And apart from membaca, kita tengah cakap pasal time management kan. So time management ni dia nak membolehkan kita uruskan sebaik-baiknya. So apa lagi yang manusia ni perlukan dalam kehidupan seharian mereka? Manusia perlu dunia luar. Kita kena exercise juga. So macam saya suka join virtual run sebab in a way benda tu akan paksa saya untuk keluar and kena berlari. So that's it. Macam as a student, properly organize your schedule. Hari ni nak buat apa. But during free time, organize juga apa kita nak buat. If membaca tu buat kita jadi more refresh, bacalah. And if exercising buat kita exercise, workout buat kita lagi better, then do whatever we want. Tapi saya juga sarankan yang kita tak tinggalkan membaca ni ke tepi. Sebab membaca ni dia akan buat otak kita lagi sharp tau. Makin banyak kita baca, makin sharp otak kita. Sebab itulah Dr. Mahathir, this is not about politik tapi macam mana dia dah 90 lebih tahun pun dia boleh run a country lagi. Faham tak? Because of dia memang terkenal as orang yang suka membaca. So itu yang kita kena buat. Kita macam jangan jadi alasan kita busy, tapi macam kita carilah masa satu muka surat, dua muka surat pun tak apa. So saya rasa itu sahaja untuk soalan kedua. Thank you.
Terima kasih Sister Balqis. Sangat hebat. Selain daripada membaca, dia juga sangat aktif dalam bersukan. Sangat perlu dicontohi ya rakan-rakan semua. Jadi soalan seterusnya saya rasa saya nak ajukan kepada Sister Balqis sekali lagi. Soalan seterusnya berbunyi, sebutkan satu perkara yang mengubah hidup awak bila awak baca buku dan namakan satu buku, bagi tahu your favorite book dan kenapa.
Okay. So satu benda yang mengubah hidup saya dengan membaca. Actually logically thinking, kita takkan dapat satu impak yang besar. Macam membaca je. Macam apa kita boleh dapat selain daripada like knowledge baru or macam benda tu akan dalam ruang lingkup yang sama tau. Dia akan ada satu perubahan yang drastik. Tapi perubahan yang saya nampak adalah perubahan konsistensi. Sebab saya pernah, bila kita bercakap, kita kena ada ilmu. Prinsip ni apply juga time kita buat presentation, time kita buat forum ke, or even time kita type dekat social media, kita suarakan apa-apa, kena ada ilmu. Jadi saya pernah dekat satu tahap yang saya berdebat tanpa membaca dan tanpa ilmu. Dan perubahan dia memang sangat-sangat ketara sebab saya cerita sikit lah. Kalau debat dia 7 minit kan bercakap. So macam pertama kali saya debat, time tu saya saya tak prepare dengan bahan bacaan yang sepatutnya. Saya tak bersedia lah, tak banyak membaca time tu. I only able to speak for 3 minutes je. And benda tu sebenarnya sangatlah kekurangan kepada pasukan kita kan. So saya rasa macam impak yang kita akan dapat lihat adalah kita punya cakap makin ada isi yang boleh memberi kebaikan kepada orang lain. Okay, contoh yang macam lagi terkini sikit. Kan Luqman pun ada cakap yang kami pernah dipanggil untuk majalah remaja punya shooting. So during that shooting, kami kena macam buat talk dia pasal institusi pendidikan. Kita ada IPTA, IPTS, Politeknik semua tu kan. So during that time, kita ada 4 orang. Tapi kami sedar yang time tu preparation yang majalah remaja bagi tu sekejap je, macam saya pun tak ingat berapa lama je kami diberitahu. Lepas tu kami dipanggil untuk shoot benda tu. So time tu ada berlaku kesilapan informasi daripada kami pasal Politeknik. Kami ada buat silap. Kami tak banyak baca sebenarnya how Politeknik works. So benda tu sebenarnya pernah viral lah, tapi di kalangan orang-orang Politeknik je. Sebab contohlah macam orang kutuk UIA, kita mesti lah akan marah. Budak-budak UIA akan marah kan. So during that time, kita orang tak merendahkan Politeknik, tapi in a way kita orang macam tunjuk yang Politeknik dia tak terbuka, tak peluang dia tak luas, something like that lah. But in a way sebenarnya benda tu totally wrong. Sebab orang-orang Politeknik, orang yang lebih tahu. So kami bukan pakar dalam benda tu, tapi kami cakap je and tak cukup ilmu pula tu. So perkara tu mengundang kemarahan lah daripada orang Politeknik. And viral tu menyebabkan kami dipanggil semula untuk buat permohonan maaf and macam clear cut thing balik. So macam itu pun juga mungkin boleh dijadikan macam insiden yang mengubah hidup. So after that memang lebih berhati-hati lah and prepare dulu before kita bercakap semua. Especially during presentation, saya rasa ini apply dan terpakai kepada semua orang kan. Kita bacalah banyak source and different kind of source. Kita baca PDF, kita baca blog. Kenapa kita kena masukkan juga pendapat daripada orang awam ataupun personal opinion supaya kita dapat point of view macam mana sebenarnya orang react dengan sesuatu benda tu. Benda tu akan macam lagi meluaskan kita punya time kita present or bercakap. Okay. Saya rasa itulah macam makin lama kalau bersedia, kita tahu kita bersedia, kita akan lagi yakin, lidah pun tak terbelit-belit. So in a way benda ni menjawab juga kepada soalan how to gain confidence is you have to read and you have to be prepared before you deliver your speech. Sebab kalau kita betul-betul prepare, kita tahu kita bersedia, kita mesti boleh buat. And kemudian cakap pasal favourite book, sebenarnya saya macam saudara Luqman ni dia banyak baca bahan bacaan yang tinggi tau. Kalau saya pula, saya macam orang yang book tu macam comfort, macam saya find comfort in reading. So sebenarnya saya punya bahan bacaan dia macam ada banyak lah. Macam during the time yang saya rasa macam rohaniah tu macam rasa lemah sikit, saya akan ambil buku-buku keagamaan, serius. Macam contohnya The Art of Letting God, Dear God, Divine Blessings by Hafsah Hamid. Kalau time tu saya macam penat saya baca buku-buku yang santai. Kalau saya rasa macam nak termotivasi, saya baca macam Tim Abdullah punya karya. Sebab dia cerita pasal perjalanan dia belajar. So in a way benda tu macam akan buat you jadi lagi spirit lah untuk usaha. Lepas tu kalau saya kan macam more to bahasa Melayu, saya tu dalam bahasa Melayu, dia buat bahasa Melayu semua kan. So saya kalau saya nak improve English, saya akan baca bahan bacaan English tapi yang mudah-mudah. Contohnya macam buku poem, buku novel-novel yang kita tahu seronok, Harry Potter semua tu. So bahan bacaan saya ni boleh dikatakan pelbagai lah. Kalau macam saya baca juga novel-novel cinta, saya baca juga, tapi kalau macam karya-karya yang macam fiction, saya suka kalau bahasa Melayu, Collection of Laksmana Sunan by Ramli Awang Mursyid. Saya suka macam mana dia terapkan elemen keagamaan dalam tu, elemen fantasi juga. So benda tu bila kita suka, kita akan jadi macam rasa lega and feeling better untuk semua orang juga. Find comfort in apa yang baca, akan rasa macam seronok lah dengan benda tu. So dan benda tu pula kalau saya nak baca bahan bacaan yang ada bahan bacaan yang saya perlu baca secara paksaan. Contohnya macam bahan-bahan macam untuk kita subjek-subjek law ke. Kalau dalam benda tu pula awak memang kena paksa. Dia macam in a way take it until you make it. And last lah, saya sebenarnya juga saya suka baca kamus dewan. So daripada kamus dewan sebenarnya ada banyak peribahasa yang tak pernah kita dengar. Korang boleh selak kamus dewan, contoh perkataan ayam, dekat bawah sekali maksud ayam akan ada tulis PRB, maksudnya peribahasa. So dia akan listkan semua peribahasa yang ada perkataan ayam. Ini macam ilmu baru untuk dikongsi untuk semua orang jugalah. So benda ni saya apply waktu saya buat karangan SPM ke apa ke, saya baca kamus dewan juga. So in a way, carilah buku apa pun yang korang nak baca and find that comfort in during your reading. So itu je, thank you.
Sama-sama Sister Val. Beberapa perkara yang sangat menarik perhatian saya ya. Bila Sister Val kata buat semua benda dengan berilmu. Saya sangat setuju dengan benda tu. Lagi-lagi bila kita ni orang-orang yang berpengaruh, bila you cakap tanpa ilmu, cakap melulu saja, benda tu sangat memberi impak yang besar lah. Dan yang kedua, how to gain confidence, you need to read. Walaupun saya nampak macam tak nervous, tapi saya sebenarnya nervous gila lah. Tapi sebab saya dah baca macam mana nak cope with nervous, and then I look quite okay lah kan sekarang. So then we move on to Brother Luqman with again the same question, which is name one thing that changed your life when you read books, and name one favorite book of yours and why, if you may.
Okay, thank you for the question given. So there are two questions. The first question is one thing that changed your life when you read books, and name one favorite book of yours and why. So start by answering the first question. One thing that changed my life when I read books. So firstly, I would like to add on, like Sister Syahirah, Balqis had mentioned about our experience during our talk with Majallah Remaja, in which yes, because we lacked a lot of reading, we did some mistakes, and we learned a lot from that. And I think that that's a big point in my life, because so many people attacked. Like some people messaged me with a threat to find my home and stuff, or like, where are you, where do you live? So yeah, it's fun. It's a good experience that you can go into life. And that's why whenever you say something, make sure to read, because the consequences are dire. Like what we did during the Majallah Remaja talk was that we just offended a few tens of thousands of people. Like the post in which became an issue, it was seen by 25,000 people or the 50,000 people. But once you become more influencing, once you become someone bigger, imagine how big that mistake would have the effect on people. Especially now when you have cancel culture. You do one mistake, people are just like over you, which is extremely dangerous. That's why when you want to say something, make sure you read. So now, answering the question, what's one thing that changed my life during reading? I think there are like two types of people, and both of these people are respectable. The first type is I'm thankful for Syahirah Balqis. Like she reads because it's fun. It's something to have your time, like just fill your time. It's something to occupy your mind. But the thing that changed my life is reading. In fact, like for me, like personally, I'm not just the type to be, I think there are many types, and because like Sister Shaira already clarified one side of it, but for me, reading changed my life because it's a way for me to enter a new world. I guess it's a way for me to escape the world that we have now. Like a lot of us are going through study. A lot of us are going through very stressful moments. So for me, reading is a way for me to take my mind from everything that happens and put myself in a new world, meaning the book that you're reading. And that's why I become extremely fascinated and a lot of passion in whatever I read. And I always make it a priority to, whenever I read, I take a lot from it. For me personally, because I'm that type of person, I don't just read for just because they're lines of text, but rather I also read to understand the characters, how they think, and how that would teach me in real life. Because simple books, even fantastical books like the Percy Jackson series, one of my favorite series by Rick Riordan. It's a simple novel series, but because of how I am, because for me I enter a new world when I'm reading, it taught me a lot. It taught me about sympathy. It taught me about how people should treat others. It also taught me about so many things. So I'm the type of person that when I read, I really delve into it, and I really want to be critical of everything that I read. And how it benefits me is that it makes me a lot more aware of how people would think, or how people would act, or some other facts as I read more and I progress more. So for me, one thing that did change my life is reading. Reading has taught me so many important values in life: how to treat people, how to be a nice person, how to actually have expressions when you're talking. Because I used to be a person that was super expressionless. So the thing that changed my life is reading on it itself. Because for me, reading is the point in time where I enter a new point, a new point in space, a new world for me, like if you would phrase it like that. That's first. Now answering the second question. Second question is, what is my favorite book? To be honest, I enjoy book that I read and I enjoy them really, really much. I'm so fascinated by the characters that I see in the books. I'm so fascinated by the writer and how they do their grammar, how they do their writing. So there are many categories. If you ask me what type of author does the best writing or have the most beautiful language, then I would say that you could go search up the author of the Shadowverse, the Shadow Hunters. I'm sorry. There's a book. It's a series of Shadow Hunters. The author, which I forgot what her name was, she's super beautiful with her language. Just search the series Shadow Hunters and find the book. There's also a TV series which is different. Find the book and find the author. Her language is super beautiful. But in terms of what gave me the most lessons, because whenever I read, I try to find moral values and lessons, is a book called Seven Habits of Highly Effective People by Stephen R. Covey. And I think everyone can read this book because the book is, it's simple. It isn't really that thick, and it taught me a lot of things. And I have, I have made some points on the few important lessons that this book taught me. And it's my favorite book because I started by a person that I'm not really what you would call an extrovert or a person that's super talented in socializing with people. I used to have a big problem with even controlling my expressions or talking to people or socializing, in a daily manner. So this is a book that actually taught me how to treat people well. So among the lessons that it taught me was, first, don't judge, but understand. Like the quote that was so fascinating in the book, and I still remember now, because I like to remember quotes from books because they're super fascinating. Is, firstly, people who judge will never understand, and people who understand will never judge. So the point and idea when you listen to somebody is not to judge them based on who they are, but to listen first to that message and then identify whether that message is good or not for me. And the second lesson that I would also like to share is also a quote that I remember from that book is, in that book, it teaches you that things are gradual. So many people want to rush through life so fast. Everyone wants to have a good and fit body tomorrow. Or everyone wants to have something so fast until they rush the process. But the process is what makes the journey enjoyable. As much as it's stressful, as much as there's so many, there are times of when we are depressed. I believe the journey is important, and taking it one step at a time creates better individual at the end of the day. And what did the book say? In the book of Seven Habits of Highly Effective People by Stephen R. Covey, the quote that I would like to take was, it said, sow a thought, reap an action. Sow an action, reap a habit. Sow a habit, reap a character. And once you sow that character, reap a destiny, meaning it alters the path of your life. The point in time where you take things one step at a time means that you're really exploring the journey that you're going through. Same as in life. Anyone that wants to have a healthy body, you don't have to do like 100 push-ups tomorrow, or you don't have to do anything extreme. Why? Because it'll tire you. It will tire you at the end of the day. Take things one step at a time, and this is what this book has taught me. Because I'm the type of person that's super fascinated and super passionate when I read books. So yeah, that was answering the question. Thank you.
Thank you and welcome, Brother Luqman. I love his enthusiasm and passion towards books. I just wish I could have as passionate as him. And yeah, and I think it is actually the purpose of book. When you read, it escalates your critical thinking and eventually change your perspective on certain things. That is the purpose. If you read and then you do nothing, it's like tak ada kesan lah macam tu. And with somehow we've come to the end questions, to the last question. The last question would be, as you both are NILAM figures, you read thousands of books, lots of knowledge embedded in it. Could you please just give few motivation for us and recommend some books, especially for the beginners? For Brother Luqman.
Thank you. So the question was, to give some motivation and recommend some books, especially for beginners. So answering that question first, I think we must identify that people are different, and so many people approach reading in a different way. But I'll tell you what I would do and what would motivate me to go on reading or to go on find a book and read. So what I do, what I did as a child is, like I said before, what I learned from that book is, everything is gradual, even reading. Please don't rush and suddenly take a very heavy book like, one book that I'm reading now is called Islam and Secularism by Syed Najib Al-Attas. Don't just suddenly take that and then you'll read it. Why? Because you'll be super bored reading it. Even me as an avid reader, it does become boring sometimes because there's so many technical terms. So don't start with that. Start with simple books that you will enjoy. What are those books? I think some of the books are, firstly, books based on movies. Like, books from the Harry Potter series or books from the Wimpy Kids series. Like, based on what I see, everyone enjoys the book Diary of a Wimpy Kid. It's rare to see someone that doesn't enjoy that book. Why? Because the language is simple and the humor is always on point. Well, there are sometimes, some punchlines, but it can always make you happy. Like Diary of a Wimpy Kid is what you would call a feel-good book. It's a book that makes you feel good when you read it. So Diary of a Wimpy Kid, I would start with that book. And as a child, personally, what I started with was, if you want to start with, just very light books, you could start with not really children's book, but they're young adult books. I would start with any book written by Roald Dahl. Roald Dahl is a famous children's author, but his books, they're also made into movies. Extremely, good books, enjoyable books, and really light books to read. For example, Charlie and the Chocolate Factory from Roald Dahl, Charlie in the Glass Elevator, but also from Modal. Those are the books that I started with. And why did I start with them? It was because I watched the movie. I started with that book because I was fascinated and I love the movie. So always start from, simple books, and you don't have to rush it. Have your own pace in order to move on to heavier books. But like Shaira Balqis said earlier, for heavy books like subject books, like for me, biology books or physics books, those are the things that you just have to force. Just, give your time 30 minutes. Okay? So these 30 minutes are the 30 minutes where I'm just going to force myself and read these super boring books. That's how life is. You can't enjoy everything. There are some things that you have to force and just fake it till you make it. So yeah, what I would suggest specifically as a book is start with books that have a movie adaptation. For example, Harry Potter, Diary of a Wimpy Kid, A Diary of a Wimpy Kid, or Charlie and the Chocolate Factory. Starting from those books, build on. But make sure, I think, if you want to have your first book, there are two ways. Firstly, if you can, find a book that you really, really like. Make sure that you really like the book and then start it. Why? Because I don't want you to be discouraged while you're reading it. But secondly, if you can't find it and you're just not interested, in that book in of itself, I think it could be possible for you to pretend to be interested. By time, when you get the storyline and you get the gist of what the characters are doing, that's the point where you'll be interested in that book more and more to the point where you would take an incentive to read the book at the end of the day. So yeah, that's what I would say to start reading books. And from my side, I'm the type of person that's always fascinated by books. So anyone out there that's like me, if you want to enjoy your book and really be fascinated in everything that you read, go on. For me, reading a book is like entering a new world and learning so many stuff. And actually you can build your own character, which is equally important. Like for me, reading books is not just, reading books is a way in order for you to become someone better. Always find lessons. Always find moral values, because in every single book, there's always tons of lessons and tons of moral values in them. So that's all. Thank you.
Most welcome to Brother Luqman. Just few things. It is indeed when you read books, it is as if you enter a new world and you just forget about the reality, and sometimes you just get disappointed and sad when it's come to the end and so on. And few things for any beginner here, you can start with simple books such as the adaptation movies and also children books. Children books stories actually very interesting, and it has the vocabulary is quite simple, and you should buy it if you want to. Again, it's everything's about act, right? So the last question for the last speaker in this last session, soalan terakhir untuk Sister Balqis, soalan yang sama. Apakah motivasi yang boleh diberikan kepada anak-anak muda, dan cadangkan satu buku kepada kami-kami ni, lagi-lagi yang baru ingin membaca.
Okay, thank you very much, Sister Nuha. So, okay, soalan dia adalah motivasi untuk membaca buku. So, pertama sekali kita kena sedar yang membaca buku ni dia bukan satu kewajipan, dia adalah satu hobi. So, bila kita cakap pasal hobi ni kena apa yang kita suka untuk buat. So, saya setuju dengan pendapat saudara Luqman untuk membaca ni benda baik, sebenarnya memang susah nak buat. Okay, so kalau nak start, kita kena start small. Konsep dia macam in Islamic way juga, start small and macam konsisten dengan kita punya small step tu. Macam lepas tu kalau kita akan mula dengan bahan bacaan yang memang preference kita. Kalau kita suka baca buku yang fiction, then go for fiction. Kalau kita suka baca encyclopedia ataupun bahan bacaan yang berat, then go to bahan bacaan yang berat. Tapi ada second type of person yang dia tak suka pun membaca, but dia tahu membaca tu baik. So macam mana dia nak start? Okay, untuk di second category yang saya pun sebenarnya selalu je macam tu. Yang kita akan rasa macam malas nak baca, kita lama tinggalkan membaca. So apa yang kita kena fikir and mindset adalah percayalah membaca ni memang banyak kebaikan dia. Macam sangat banyak. Dia akan membantu kita untuk in our vocabulary, during our exam, kalau kita nak contoh yang dekat kan. Lepas tu dia akan membantu emosi kita untuk jadi lebih matang. Contoh, kalau kita tahu pasal undang-undang, kita takkan terus macam salahkan kerajaan. Kenapa pemandu mabuk tu kita hukuman dia kita bagi bayaran je. Kita so macam kalau benda tu kita kena tahu. So macam benda tu ada baiknya untuk kita tahu sebab benda tu akan build karakter kita in a way. So kalau untuk orang yang tak suka, kita kena bukanlah paksa. Paksa tu nanti macam akan mental kita akan block and reflect dengan benda tu dengan cara yang tak baik. So kita macam fikir apa kebaikan-kebaikan, input-input yang kita boleh dapat through our reading, and then kita maybe boleh start dengan e-book. Kalau kita orang yang memang bukannya membaca, kita start dengan e-book. Kalau ada e-book yang percuma, ada e-book yang perlu dibeli tapi murah. Macam saya pernah beli e-book untuk buku-buku harga RM80, tapi ada orang tu jual macam harga RM1 je daripada kopi e-book tu. Lepas tu benda tu akan buatkan kita lebih human macam saya cakap tadi. So in a way, sebenarnya kita sendiri pun tahu membaca ni baik dan kita kena cuba untuk amalkan dalam kehidupan seharian kita. So kita masukkan selit-selit and start small. Lama-lama kita akan terbiasa dengan amalan membaca tersebut. Lepas tu mentality, kalau mentality read book ini macam dia bukanlah literal ulat buku or bookworm macam kita punya topik untuk forum kita kan. Kita boleh jadi seorang yang multitask and all-rounder even if we love to read. Contohnya ramai macam saya Sadi adalah orang yang pemimpin generasi Z sebab generasi Z memang suka saya Sadi, right? So macam dia macam orang yang sangat ada pencapaian yang tinggi. Semua tu sebab dia banyak membaca. Tapi dia juga kalau dia pun orang yang aktif in sport. So semua tu tidak menjadikan kita orang yang nerd or orang yang just duduk dekat library, no. Buku tu baik, membaca tu baik untuk kita and kita perlu amalkan and kita tak perlu pun tinggalkan hobi-hobi kita lain. Macam kita suka main game, kalau brothers or sisters yang suka main game, then boleh je main game. Tapi kita janganlah tinggalkan amalan membaca ni secara totally. So kalau cakap pasal book recommendation pula, macam yang semua sedia maklum, nak pilih book ni kita kena start dengan apa yang kita suka. Kalau suka baca bahan bacaan yang pendek, boleh go to buku-buku sajak, sastra, puisi or poem English sebab dia memang pendek. Dalam satu page tu, dia satu perenggan je kadang-kadang, muka surat belakang dia pula kosong. Then baru dia go to next page sebab itu memang bahan bacaan untuk orang yang baru nak start small. Kalau nak motivation pula, saya cadangkan buku Motivation for Study, saya cadangkan buku How to Become a Good and Successful Medical Student. Dia walaupun dia buku pasal, dia by Prof. Muhaya, walaupun dia certainly untuk medic student, tapi dalam tu ada banyak tips-tips menarik dan buku tu sangat nipis je. Saya beli pun dekat UIA. Saya baru discover time tu dia jual depan he and she, yes. Lepas tu jangan go to terus macam kontrak sosial yang tebal buku-buku yang berat. Go to apa yang kita suka. Kalau suka baca novel Melayu, then just go. And kita juga boleh start dengan baca bahan-bahan dekat internet sebab itu kita familiar kan. And in a way, kita nanti bila kita dah pupuk dulu, suka baca bahan-bahan macam blog semua tu, kita akan ada satu fasa kita nak cuba pula physical book. Then benda tu akan berevolusi dengan sendirinya dan benda tu akan berlaku secara berperingkat. And then bila dah baca buku yang kita suka and our preference book, kita go to buku-buku yang sesuai dengan umur kita. kita start baca pasal politik Malaysia pula, sebab satu hari nanti kita semua yang akan tentukan who yang akan memerintah negara. So kita kena tahu pasal politik. Cuba bayangkan macam sekarang status semasa kita yes ada isu about umur mengundi 18, but for now either 18 or 21 both umur yang sangat muda untuk mengundi, right? So what we need to do, kita rakyat Malaysia, kita bertanggungjawab untuk memilih pemimpin kan. So kita kena baca pasal politik. And jangan terus suap kita punya mentality dengan benda dekat Twitter or media sosial, sebab biasanya orang tu akan, dia ada side preference dia. So that's why kita kena baca authority punya sources untuk kita dapat view daripada dua-dua side. So nampak tak, baca ni memang sangat penting. So sekarang dah start dengan umur kita sekarang, instead di samping kita membaca bahan yang kita suka, kita baca juga bahan-bahan yang kita perlu. Contohnya bahan-bahan belajar kita, bahan-bahan pasal politik semasa dan sebagainya. Itu sahaja. Thank you.
Terima kasih Sister Balqis. Sedikit sebanyak yang apa yang saya dapat adalah untuk kamu-kamu semua yang belum suka untuk membaca lagi, jadi apa yang awak patut cuba adalah start dengan apa yang awak suka, yang simple-simple. Sometimes reading is not just about membaca buku yang hitam putih. It can be comic. Jadi and nowadays banyak komik yang yang very intellectual punya komik tau. So macam tak adalah membazir masa sangat pun, lagi pun it's you baca komik ke, you baca novel ke, there's even 1% of knowledge. So just read, okay? And I think that's all for the question. And even though it's already 10:30, I'll just break quite a bit of time to ask just a few questions to you guys. I'll just ask one question for each of you. So the first question for Brother Luqman, is there any specific genre to be a great person? Someone asked this. Yeah, if you may.
Thank you for the question. So, what is a great person? It's such a vague word and it has such a general meaning. And the answer to that is there a specific genre? I would say, the reality of the reality is that I don't think there is. The thing is about people is so many people learn from so many ways, and so many people learn from so many sources. Some people can, simply see somebody feeding a cat or a dog and they become someone different from that experience. Some people, they actually have to be, that experience has to be embedded in them really, really hard. So in terms of when you're reading books, I think the idea in which you learn something and you become a better person is how you perceive and how you accept anything that you read. I've read a lot of fantasy books. Many people think, when they look at me, oh, you're a nerd. You probably read books like Islam and Shahrulnizam by Syed Nakib al-Atas or other high philosophical books. But the thing is, I didn't really start from that. I started by books, fantasy books. The best series that I've ever read was in terms of novels and fiction was Percy Jackson. I love fantasy books, but did I learn a lot from them? And did I become a better person by reading fantasy books? I did. The thing is, it's not about what genre you read, but it's rather how you accept and how you approach every single lesson and moral value that every book teaches you. But sure, if you do want, a genre which explicitly says this is what you have to do in order to become a good person, I think, the genre is like psychology books. Psychology books explicitly and clearly, literally say, if you want to be a good person, you should do this. If you want to be a good person, you should do that. But I don't advise this, because if you don't like psychology genre, then, that won't really work. What I think is just read anything you want, but the way you accept those moral values and lessons, that's what important. Really digest what you read and practice it into actions. So that's all. Thank you.
Thank you, Brother Luqman. And the second question for Sister Syahirah. Wait. So there's two questions because I don't know, someone flagged me to ask this question to you and there's another question. Jadi soalan pertama, ada apa-apa tips untuk fast reading? Second, pernah terfikir ke nak menjadi penulis dan kalau ya, genre apa?
Okay, thank you so much, Sister Nuha. So the question for me, tips for fast reading. Saya pernah juga satu masa yang saya tak boleh habiskan buku tu. So saya baca awal, lepas tu saya baca akhir untuk tak sabar nak tahu ending. But it's not supposed to be that way. Kalau nak fast reading ni, sebenarnya dalam subjek law pun saya pernah belajar juga. Kita baca dia punya macam subtopic and heading dulu and then kita scan through the book. Dia tak semestinya kita kena go through one by one the words kalau kita nak fast reading. Sebab fast reading ni biasanya kita nak, dia mesti ada tujuan tertentu kenapa kita nak fast reading. Sebab kalau kita reading to enjoy, kita mesti tak berapa kisah lah pasal fast reading tu as long as we love what we read. So kalau pasal fast reading ni, kita kena, there is no other way, memang you kena go through supaya you tak terlepas benda yang penting. You tak boleh go daripada first tiba-tiba pergi tengah and tiba-tiba pergi akhir. Nanti akan banyak missing gap antara benda tu. So you kena scan and roughly baca and then you will get the idea pasal the intipati dalam that text. And itulah, kemudian kalau tak faham, kita go back and baca detail. Sebab ada part yang dia senang untuk kita digest, otak kita sekali baca and mata kita sekali pandang pun kita dah boleh tangkap and grab, okay, ini tengah cakap pasal apa. But ada time, maybe benda tu terms yang baru ataupun benda tu macam susah sikit dan kita just go back to that particular part so that end result dia akan lebih jimat masa lah daripada kita baca buku secara normal one by one tu. Alright, so second question yang sangat menarik adalah pernah tak terfikir nak jadi penulis? Sebenarnya saya rasa pernah sebab waktu saya kecil kan saya ada bagi tahu saya baca majalah Bintang Kecil. Saya pernah tulis artikel and hantar dekat penerbitan Bintang Kecil tu and benda tu dipublish. So saya dekat at that point macam adalah keinginan untuk jadi penulis tu. Kalau pasal genre pula, saya suka macam mungkin kalau waktu kecil kita nak genre yang easy and fun. More to fantasy, baca buku-buku Aiman Sarah semua tu kan yang sesuai for kids. Tapi saya pernah terfikir untuk macam jadi penulis yang buat review or kupasan tentang macam isu-isu. Contohnya macam kupasan politik ke, something like that lah. Tapi saya rasa mungkin tak adalah dah tak terasa nak jadi penulis. Tapi penulis ni sebenarnya susah sebab you kena like 24/7 you kena think everyday. Macam buku dia sebenarnya jadi penulis ni dia akan ada banyak impact tau. You have to kadang-kadang you kena macam cut social from everyone to reflect balik apa yang akan menepati, something like that lah, being a penulis. So walaupun nampak macam maybe nak ada certain orang yang memandang kerja penulisan ni sebagai mudah sebab dia just menulis apa yang kita fikir dalam otak, but actually dia tak semudah yang semua orang fikir. Kalau secara jujurnya sekarang at this moment saya rasa saya lebih kepada nak praktikkan apa yang dibaca. Mungkin kalau maksudnya kalau contoh awak adalah student medik, saya nak praktikkan bahan bacaan biologi saya, terjemahkan dalam kerjaya jadi seorang doktor. Itu macam gambaran je lah. Maksudnya saya lebih prefer sekarang untuk terjemahkan apa yang saya baca. Tak kisahlah apa-apa asalkan manusia berguna, insyaAllah. So, ya, pernah terfikir untuk jadi penulis. And it's good untuk siapa-siapa yang rasa nak jadi penulis sebab kita akan menyumbang bakti dan ilmu kita kepada masyarakat. And lastly, being a penulis juga, saya percaya akan keep kita more humble. Sebab nak tulis, kita kena tahu lebih banyak benda daripada pembaca. So when kita learn and knows more, we will be more humble sebab kita lebih tahu what is actually happening. So that's all. Thank you.
Sama-sama, terima kasih dan sama-sama kepada Sister Ba. Jadi kepada yang bertanyakan soalan tu, I hope you take all of that into account, and to those yang tak dapat saya ajukan tu, you can try bila ada masa nanti. I don't know when. So we've come to the end. Thank you a lot to all of you, especially to these two spectacular speaker. Sangat hebat. Saya tak tahu nak cakap apa dah. Terlampau hebat. So now kepada yang penonton, saya harap awak boleh buka kamera untuk tangkap gambar lah. Tapi kalau tak nak buka pun tak apa, saya faham. Tapi kalau nak buka tu digalakkan lah. Jadi kita tunggu sekejap untuk siapa-siapa yang nak buka. Okay.
Oh, and I would just like to say hi to my friends, Adib, Luqman. These guys were NILAM scholars too. But yeah, they're also great people, just to say. I think there are others, but they're on YouTube. So these are the ones that I see now. Adib Syami and Luqman Hakim. Hi.
Hi, Luqman.
Hi.
So I think ada lagi yang nak buka, ada yang lagi yang nak buka. Jangan malu, jangan risau. Semua orang sangat cantik, they're handsome. Jadi saya rasa ni saja yang buka. Okay, satu dalam kiraan 1, 2, 3 semua senyum ya. Jangan tak senyum, jangan tutup mata ya. Okay. Okay, ready ya semua? 1, 2, 3. Okay, lagi sekali. Okay. Okay, lagi sekali. 1, 2, 3. Okay dah. Terima kasih semuanya. Terima kasih dan selamat malam kepada semuanya.
Thank you everyone yang join, and sorry atas segala kekurangan juga.
Ya, saya pun minta maaf kepada semua sebab saya pun first time lagi, jadi memang teruk sangat. Tapi itulah ada jadi dah kan.
Thank you everyone. Thank you for listening. And I'm also open if anyone wants to, correct me if I did any mistakes. Thank you.
All right. Thank you for organizing this program. So thank you to the speakers. Bye-bye.